using can
Thank you for
unlock
tuning
certain
in
types of
this
psychosis. You're
time
thinking, why
on
is this person acting
Disrupt
funny? Some of that
and
can be
Discuss
effects of the
podcast.
marijuana that they're using or the strand that they're using.
Welcome to Disrupt and Discuss with your hosts, E and Casey. A Blue Shade Ventures production brought to you by It's Just ETV and My Herba by the Fitness Collective. Now, without any further ado, disrupt and discuss.
Hey everyone.
Hey,
How's everybody doing?
I'm always doing good. I woke up.
You guys, welcome to Disrupt and Discuss. I am E,
And I am KC.
and together we are what? D
D
and
and
D.
D.
Today we have another one. I always say that. I guess that's going to be my tagline. We have another one. We have another interview. We have another guest. And this one is a special guest. And we are excited to bring her to you. Today, you guys, on Disrupt and Discuss, we are joined by the powerhouse in the field of mental health and crisis intervention, Ashleigh. She's a professional. She's a devoted mom. She has 3 wonderful children whose journey into social work is both inspiring and deeply human. After a 7-year gap following her undergrad studies, she made a bold decision to return to school and earn her master's in social work right in the midst of C-19. Balancing motherhood, remote classes, in an uncertain world, her past since has then been a testament to purpose and persistence. Ashleigh has intervened, she has interned at Group Groans, served as a case developer for guardianship, general dispute cases, experiences that gave her firsthand look at complexities of advocacy and capacity in vulnerable populations. Her postgraduate, she continues to evolve her career with depth and compassion, working as a case manager in the psychiatric hospital, serving on the psychiatric response team, conducting 5150 evaluations, and taking on some of the toughest calls as part of the 988 crisis response team at the county level. Today, she brings all that experience into her current role as a medical social worker, where she helps patients and families navigate some of life's most challenging moments with empathy, skill, and heart. We are honored to have her on the show to discuss the realities of crisis work, the balance between career, motherhood, how social workers like her are on the front lines of healing, especially during the difficult holiday season. Disrupt and Discuss family, welcome, Ashleigh.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you got it. That's why I said you're a powerhouse.
I try.
That's a long list.
How my track record was before I got into mental health is going to be even longer. So.
Right. Right? We are just honored to have you here. So let's get into the conversation about who you are, what you're doing. So I'll give it over to always the heavy hitter, Casey.
Oh, yeah, heavy hitter. But first of all, I want to thank you for the time you're putting into speaking with us because I know you have a busy schedule. For those that aren't aware, October is Mental Health Awareness Month, which is why we definitely are especially glad that you were able to step away to speak with us. With the holidays approaching, I know that's starting to settle with a lot of people, the anxiety that moves forward with that, and also to share some of the resources that are available to people that they don't even realize are out there. I definitely want to dive into the conversation, and I'm sure that if it can even help just one person, it will definitely be worth the time and effort that we're putting forward to speak with you today. Thank you for your time and effort in giving us a snippet of your time.
No problem.
I guess with that laundry list of things that you've done, what was the main thing that got you into this field? I know there was that 7-year gap and the pandemic, and it had a lot of people choosing new paths, discovering old paths. What was the catalyst to make that happen for you?
I knew I wanted to go back to school to get my master's at some point, but I just didn't know what I wanted to get it in. I didn't want to go back to school and just waste money on a degree that I probably wouldn't even utilize, especially when it's a master's. You want to be able to financially benefit from that in the end.
Absolutely.
In undergrad, I went out of state and obtained my bachelor's in broadcast communications. I worked at a radio station. It was fun, but I couldn't make any money from it. Then I started working at Starbucks and other jobs because I ended up having a kid not too long after I graduated from undergrad. I came back to California and I started seeing a therapist because there was a lot going on in my life that I needed somebody professionally to help me get through it. My therapist had recommended social work, and he was like, why don't you just go back to school and just get your master's in social work? I didn't really know what I wanted. He explained the benefits of the degree and what type of opportunities would unleash for me. So I said, okay, fine. So I applied online because at that time I had 2 kids. I was working in insurance, and I didn't want to put it on my parents to watch the kids when I went to school. I couldn't do in person because I would be 100% reliant on them. And if it was a day that they couldn't watch them, it would cause a lot of chaos. I said, screw it, I'll just look online. I went online, applied, and I got in. Not too long after I started, maybe 6 months or a year, COVID hit. I'm glad I did it because a lot of schools had to transition to virtual. I was already
Right.
the only thing that was an issue was getting closer to that internship opportunity. But my therapist is actually the reason why I went back to school to get my master's specifically in social work.
Was that something that your therapist recommended to you? At some point, did you even think about that in the past? I was thinking about that, and then my therapist said I should do it. So that some people take that as confirmation as, oh, this is what I really need to be doing.
To be honest, no, I didn't even think about social work. I didn't even know. Everybody would always say, get your degree in business. And it's, yeah, that's good. But I'm like, what would I actually use that for? Like, what type of jobs? There was no jobs
Correct.
with that degree that really interests me. So at that time, I really didn't know. But once he told me that, I did research the industry
Mhm.
and saw that it did provide a lot of benefits. And so he was the one to tell me to go for the LCSW, which is the licensed clinical social worker, versus the licensed marriage family therapist, which is short for LMFT. So he was explaining the differences to me, and so he told me that the social work route would be the better one for me, and it opens a lot more opportunities. So I took that advice because I felt like a lot of decisions that I was making myself weren't always the correct ones. So I said, well, I'm already paying him for advice, so let me just take this.
Bang for your buck, huh?
Right?
Yeah, I said, let me just take this and run with it. Since I've done it, I'm mad that I didn't do this career sooner. What I did before was cool, but I had kids. I applied for different radio stations when I used to live out of state, and just opportunities weren't presenting to itself. But then I also was living in they call it a larger market. So it was a lot of competition and trying to get jobs in that field.
Mhm.
So, and also I had like a radio show in college. I was really into it, but I realized there's not a lot of money. There's not a lot of money to be made, especially when I had kids. But yeah, like I said, I
There's
wouldn't
always
change it.
podcasting.
Yeah, this is way before that came along, and I wasn't really thinking about that. I like what I do, and I wouldn't change it. The locations of a job sometimes, but other than that, I wouldn't change it.
How many clients do you have?
As a medical social worker, it varies. It's not like a therapist where you have a list of recurring clients. As a medical social worker, we'll have a list of people depending on the services we are over. I can have sometimes maybe 30, which is a combined of the different services that I have, but we're a referral base, right? So I might have 30 or 40, and I might only have a referral for maybe 5. Some of them might need to be connected to community resources, transportation. Sometimes it's getting families acclimated with the durable power of attorney documentations and walking them through that. So it just can vary.
Okay. You said it depends on the services. What type of services do you offer to people?
So I work at a big hospital. You have cardiology, gynecology, urology, just to name a few. We work with inpatient patients. The services that I help right now, which is always changing depending on the need, cardiology, gynecology. And I'm also learning because I didn't come from a medical social work background. I was more in crisis. I'm still learning about things within cardiology, gynecology, and stuff like that. Again, it just depends on the specific needs. Sometimes we have a patient where we have to do a next of kin search. So the needs for the patients vary depending on what the needs are.
I was making sure I don't want to cut you off. Okay, so prior to this position that you currently are in, you're saying, what was it, crisis that you were
Correct.
dealing with? If I remember correctly, speaking with you before, you would be the one that say you have somebody that's out there acting irrational or erratic out on the street. I would call you versus calling a police officer. You would be able to take a different approach as opposed to law enforcement.
Correct. So I don't know if too many people are familiar with 988. So
No.
988 is the mental health like emergency number. So instead of if you're going through a mental health crisis, depending on the county you live in, you call 988, you're dispatched and you tell them what's going on and where you are. They can dispatch you to the local county crisis workers. And so I was part of a team where we would go out to the person that is in a mental health crisis. So it can either be the person calling upon themselves, or it can be a family member or friend, or even sometimes people at their jobs are going through something. and somebody might call 988. So 988 is it's a national crisis number. So it's not even just in California, any state, you can call 988 and then they will have people that will be able to service them. We would go and assess the situation, because even though you're going through a crisis, we have to make sure the environment is also safe for us to come and service you as well. We've gone to some sketchy areas.
Tell me your story.
I'm trying to think, because one thing
Did
about
not know you were coming on the show.
No, because it's like, because I also have some coworkers have told me stories that I felt were better than my own experiences. My approach is a little more direct. I'm empathetic and compassionate, but I'm more direct. Some of them let things fester. For example, one of my coworkers went out on a call, and I think the lady called them on herself. And so they're in the process of talking with her, but she's not all the way there. And she's there, and then she's not making sense with her conversation. Then she had her dog. Then she started making out with her dog. The husband came out and he was not dressed. So they didn't know what to do. And I was like, yeah, y'all better than me. I would have either told the lady she needs to handle that business at a later time or just leave. So
she was, what? No. Hey.
I would say there was a person that always stands out to me. There was an older gentleman. He was suicidal. And he actually had walked to one of the little overpasses because he was going to jump. And so when he started walking, needless to say, his house was over a mile from that area. And he really shouldn't have been walking. Sometimes when people are in a depressive state, they don't think about their actual medical needs and certain things they shouldn't be doing. They're just in that kind of crisis. He had walked to the overpass and he was about to jump. As he was walking, there were crosses there. So somebody else must have passed. I don't know if that person passed. And we'll just call him Bob. So Bob was walking and he saw the crosses and it said Bob's name. So that actually really scared him a little bit, because he was like, somebody died who had my exact same name. He decided not to do it. He was walking back, but he was too tired. So a nice lady with her kid in the car picked him up and took him home. Then he called the crisis team for us to come and meet with him. We met with him and started talking with him, peeling back layers. He's an older gentleman. One of his kids had moved out. He has a son. I think he's autistic, but he's trying to do his own thing. He had a girlfriend and he just had work and nothing else. He was already battling with other suicidal things. He realized that he wanted to live and get the mental health treatment that he needed. He just didn't know how to go about it for himself. We were in his house. He said we would also go into people's houses too. And so we were talking to him and he's okay, I'll go get help. He was willing to go with us so we can drop him off so he can get the treatment that he needed. So we were like, okay, do you want to pack a bag? And he said, yes. And we thought that he fell asleep and left us. He just left us in his house unattended for about 30 minutes. And we're like, do we go and check in? So about 30 minutes, he came back with his bag and everything. And we took him in to talk with his family. I thought that was pretty good, because this person, if we didn't go to him, he might have we don't know if he would have tried again or felt like, hey, if nobody cares, then.
Maybe I'm just not in the know. I didn't know anything about 988.
Yeah.
911.
Which is why they're always flooded with calls, because that's what everybody knows.
Right. You see these instances where people call 911 on a loved one because they just need some help, but that person has some mental issues. And unfortunately, some of them end up tragic because the police officers don't really know how to handle this. But it's like, why are we advertising 911 and not equally advertising 988? Because I don't know about it, but obviously if I did, I would call 988 instead of 911 on a loved one that had some mental issues.
So I would say 988 is starting to catch a little bit more notoriety now. There's sometimes even with TV shows that at the end they talk about suicide awareness, right? So now you're starting to see a little bit more notoriety when it comes to 988 with certain billboards, commercials on radio stations and TV shows. So it's picking up, but it's still not there yet. But yeah, the 988 is supposed to be a buffer between the individual and law enforcement, because even though law enforcement, they have a lot of training, they don't have a lot of training when it comes to mental health. So they may not necessarily know how to approach somebody who is probably schizoaffective or bipolar. They're thinking about safety first. So
absolutely.
They may not, so again, they don't necessarily have the training, and I don't knock them because it is a lot of training that they already have to do to protect and serve. So when it comes to mental health, there's a lot of complex areas when it comes to mental health. That can be a lot. So in the county that I live in, a lot of officers actually don't attend to any crisis calls, which is a story in itself. It sucks because even though we're crisis workers, we're not armored with things to protect ourselves if that person does escalate. Because I've also had a coworker who's attended to a call. And again, we always go as a pair. You never go by yourself. So I had a coworker, they went on a call and the person didn't want them there. Just because you might feel that a person might need help, they may not necessarily feel that way, and they can refuse our services because it's voluntary.
So if I'm calling on a family member and the family member I'm calling on doesn't want to be bothered, then they can refuse any help that you might be trying to give them.
This person is posing signs of danger to themselves, danger to others, or greatly
Okay.
disabled. Those are the three criterias that we could escalate. So if a person is talking about, if you called and said, hey, Jane Doe is suicidal and
Mhm.
wants to unalive herself, we're not going to be like, oh, she doesn't want her services. But it's no, this person is literally making, then it's like, okay, even though it goes from not being a voluntary state to the point where we have to escalate this and call the ambulance because we wouldn't be able to transport the individuals. It just escalates. So then we would have to put them on the holds, call law enforcement. It's a plethora of things. But I've been very fortunate to work on multiple areas within mental health, from working at a psychiatric facility, then working at a hospital where I did 5150s before I just dealt with people who were already on holds. It's just a lot. This stuff really excites me. I never thought that.
Okay. The difference then being when you are a crisis worker, I don't know if it's you specifically or in general, that they are automatically able to do the 5150 holds, or do you have to be certified even though you're in that department? So then you can do it, but I can't.
Yes, you have to be certified in order to put somebody on a psychiatric hold. You have to be certified within your county. If you're certified in Alameda County, you can't come to Contra Costa County, Sacramento County.
Oh, okay.
Hold. Yeah, so certain things, because you have to take a class, and then we have to take a test and get certified, and then we get the certification that we're able to do 5150s, and that usually lasts for about 2 years. Then you have to recertify in order to do that. So it was interesting. I think I'm up in one county. I used to have capability to write holds in 2 different counties. But also, don't come over here, I'm gonna put you on a hold. No, but you have to actually be in your physical workplace to do that.
Okay.
Even though I'm able to write holds, I have to be in my designated work area in order to do that. When I was a crisis worker, we would be able to do it in the fields because I was working at the county, right? And our crisis work allowed us to be in the community. So that was part of our duties. But now, as a medical social worker, even though I'm still certified from when I was working in the county, that's not my role now. I'm dealing with people that are either already on a hold, that came in on a hold. No, let me take that back. If they're placed on a hold, either from law enforcement already, or the psychiatry team, or one of the ER social workers. Social workers can put people on 5150 holds. You have the psychiatry team as well. So there's specific people that can put you on a hold. Law enforcement can put you on a 5150 hold as well.
My question was, what is the criteria? Just in case I want to get somebody locked up with a 5150. What's the criteria? I want to make sure that I don't meet that criteria. I want to make sure I don't meet the criteria of 5150.
Okay, so
kind of crazy.
You're an entrepreneur. That's it right there.
Hey, when I was at work one time, I was joking with one of the security guards because he always wants to talk mess. I said, you better keep it up, put you on a hold. And then he was like, that's not fair. I said, you know what? We're all like one situation away from being on a 5150.
That's so true. Seriously.
There's 3 criteria. It is danger to self, which is DTS. So danger to self is actively trying to unalive yourself. If you're thinking of wanting to unalive yourself with a plan, or fighting the urge to not create one. Anything that's harming yourself, that can really unalive yourself or do harmful things to yourself. Then danger to others. If you say, hey, I want to unalive this person, or basically homicidal thoughts or homicidal actions or attempts, that's danger to others. GD holds is gravely disabled. If you're unable to secure food, shelter, and clothing, if you're delusional and disorganized where it hinders you from being able to project ways to take care of yourself within the community. Severe substance use could also be included in gravely disabled.
So is that where it depends on the county comes in? Because you see a lot of folks on the streets that are heavily drug
but
dependent.
You gotta realize, that's also too by choice. So for an example, when I was working at a psychiatric hospital, which I technically do, but if we discharge and part of the plan is to go back into the community, there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes people feel more safe in the community than going into a room and board or back to family members that they really do not want to be around. There's no harm in sending somebody back to the community. We do that all the time. People using drugs, again, can induce a psychiatric episode, but if they're already in the community doing such things, we wouldn't be able to necessarily put them on a hold. Holds really are put on people who voluntarily come in, or we get a call to meet with somebody. But if somebody is doing drugs, homeless, and they're not bothering anybody, technically there's nothing for us to do. It's just when either law enforcement or mental health workers have to get involved in a certain situation, that's when we do. And to be honest, I always say there's certain populations that are very resourceful, because there are certain ones that are heavily on drugs. And once they get their checks for the month and there's no more money, they can no longer utilize what they were utilizing in the community. They'll sometimes check themselves into a psychiatric hospital. You get 3 meals in a cot, basically. You have a psychiatrist that meets with you. Some people use that place to detox. Because we have frequent flyers. We see some of them come back all the time. They'll do what they do in the streets and come out, or also to change in weather. When it's really, really ugly, really crappy outside and shelters are full, some will check into a psychiatric facility and claim they want to harm themselves. Then they would fit the criteria, be admitted, and be treated.
So some of them essentially know how to play the game.
Yeah, of course. So some of them is a survival tactic. That's why I say some, not all, and I wouldn't put everybody in this box, but the work that I've done has allowed me to see the other ways of those living in the community, how they survive, right? Like I said, when harsh weathers come about, they'll either check themselves into an ER, psychiatric facility. It's dry. Also part of some of the case management things is, okay, where is this person going to go? So anytime that a person is in a psych hospital, or even in an ED, meaning emergency department, or wherever, a lot of things that we have to check off is, okay, where is this person going? And so we'll ask this person, hey, do you have a place to go to? No. Okay. Some of the psychiatrists, especially at the psych hospital, can we find some placement for him or her? That'll be part of our duties too, just to look for that. So it's a lot that we have to do to ensure.
Yeah.
But some of those people are actually like really funny. So I've had one patient, he would come often and he would see me and I'm like, hey, so-and-so, you back here again? Yeah, it wasn't even my fault though. I'm like, I didn't have
what had happened was,
I said, where are you going? He was like, oh, you gonna take me to your house? I said, no, that's not how it works. You know where you're going. We also have a lot of pretty good laughs. I remember one time at the psychiatric hospital, there was this gentleman and he's pretty cool. I don't really get scared easily or even just timid like that, because if you're in places where people feel that you're afraid of them, they will take advantage of that and they will be the one to tell you how your treatment's going. It's like, no, that's not how it works. There was this gentleman, we were in the assessment room. We were sitting down, I'm asking him questions and he's just staring me like deep into my eyes. And I was like,
that's a wrap.
But again, I wasn't tripping. I'm asking him questions, he's answering. Some questions he's just staring at me in reply, unable to assess in that part. Then he looked at me and said, where's Putin? I said, here he goes. He's having a moment. And I got this door closed. He had said something else. And I was like, it's just me in here. And even if I did like yell for help, like I couldn't get no help. I played it pretty smooth. And I was like, he just left. You didn't see him? I was like, I think he's by your room. I had to play into it a little bit.
Right.
Because he was really deep into it. And I was like, hey, let me get this door for you. And then he got out and left. I had another patient one time. He was having a moment and he was saying, well, all a woman's job is to do is just to cook and clean and make my food and stuff like that. And so a lot of the female staff were getting upset. He was just sitting there and I was like, dude, what's wrong? And he was, everybody's being mean to me because I said all the woman's job to do is just to cook and clean and do this, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, is that your opinion? He said, yeah. I said, so why are you mad? I didn't like the statement, but I'm not going to go back and forth with somebody who's not mentally there. You have to pick and choose the type of conversations that you have with people that are not in the current mindset. If somebody's not there, we're not going back and forth. I'm not doing that. I've gone into place, not in their rooms all the way, but I'll stand at the doorway. Tell the patients, if you want me to F off and leave you alone, just say, hey, just F off and leave me alone. I'll try to come and meet with you another day. I don't make it seem like you have to talk to me. Like, you'll talk to me when you want to, especially when you know that you want to discharge and leave. It's just your approach. It's so funny because my mom was like, I don't see how you do it. I couldn't do that. It takes a certain approach. You can't be very sensitive, but you also need to be empathetic. Some of them will remember you. Some of them don't, but some of them will. I've actually seen a couple of patients when I've discharged in the community where I live, but I saw them, they didn't see me. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going this way or that way. wear my hair a certain way when I'm working and I wear a mask, when they're out in the community, they're not going to necessarily identify me like that.
Okay. Is it because I'm hearing you're dealing with a lot of men who are in the psychiatric ward? Are there more women in this profession than there are men? Because I would think that they would pair you guys with the same gender.
Oh no, you can't do that. They don't do that. No.
Okay.
But psych hospitals, you would be surprised. It's actually more women that work as
That's what I
social.
was. Yep.
Yeah, at the psych hospital, even though we're social workers, we're deemed as case managers. So
Mhm.
it's mostly women that are case managers. We would like more men, but sometimes men don't necessarily apply for those positions in certain facilities. When I worked on a psych response team and we did the 5150s, it was still more women, but it was men there too.
Mhm.
Crisis work, same thing. It was about a good 50-50. Even where I'm working now, I would say it's more women that work and do what we're doing.
With all of what you're saying, how do you take a break, detox, separate yourself? And you have family, kids, and all of that, but that's a job in itself as well. What do you do to just take care of you?
Honestly, I just know how to transition from work mentally. It took me a few jobs before getting into mental health where I learned how to do that. When I used to work at the bank, if sometimes people would be really rude, I would take that home, and my kid's dad would be like, hey, where's this attitude coming from? Why are we having to get the backlash of what you went through at work? He was like, that's not fair for us. And I didn't realize that one of my friends had the saying, let tomorrow take care of tomorrow. Stop stressing about today. Once you're done with today, once you clock out, just let it go. Ever since I've done that's actually helped me. I have my therapist too. I have moments where I felt like I need help. I would talk with my therapist because he's been in this field way longer than I have, and he'll give me certain tactics. Even sometimes getting my hair done is a good outlet for me. Pedicure, manicure, just little things like that. I also said walk, little things that can distract you. Or even sometimes when I'm at work, if I just need to mentally transition, scroll through social media for maybe 5 minutes to just transition.
I want to know, how do you scroll through social media for 5 minutes? I've tried to do that, and then 2 hours later, I'm still scrolling.
I'm at work. I can't get too
She on the
comfortable.
clock.
I don't necessarily put a timer, but I do check on the time to make sure that I'm not
Mhm.
over misutilizing too much of my company's time. I just do little things like that. Sometimes we might bounce off certain patients or certain scenarios with one another, and they will say, we'll have coworkers that would just literally come to you and say, hey, are you okay? I heard you just get off the phone with that person. Are you okay? Or sometimes they would ask you like, hey, do you need me to take this for you? I've always been able to work in places where your own coworkers are very sympathetic of what you're going through, because a lot of us usually have that one person, that one situation that's happened. One of the times working at the hospital when I first started, they train you in different areas of the hospital. There was a time I was shadowing somebody, and this gentleman at first came in fine. I believe he had a heart attack, and they were trying to do various forms of CPR to revive him. And then they weren't able to revive him, and he just flatlined, right? We had to do a death notification and tell the family. The man passing was sad, but I had to tell myself, this is not my family member. I can't get emotionally wrapped up in that. When we had to talk with the family, because the family was under the impression that he was still alive because he was when he came. The daughter of the paramedic did CPR to revive him. Ambulance could take him to the hospital. When they came, we had them go into the room. We didn't disclose anything. And then we told them. The two grown kids were crying, and the wife was just there in shock. I was good. We gave them the tissues. We talked about it. We don't try to give them too much information because they're trying to like fathom the fact that their father was
Absolutely.
husband.
Yeah.
The mom, she's the one who almost got me. She was like, he literally just, I woke up this morning, he was there, we had breakfast, and he even waved me goodbye on my way to work. Then now he's gone. And she just broke
down.
I was like, damn. I had to make sure I was pregnant too. So I tried to make sure that I didn't do that, even though sometimes that emotions help build rapport, but at the same time, I didn't want to get caught up in that. Because then you start thinking about, okay, my dad and all this. No,
Right.
you have to tell yourself this is not your family members, but you're here to be a supportive person and a supportive piece to them in regards to their family transitioning. It almost gets me. I have to remember this is not my family member. Sometimes I might have to listen to certain music, certain songs, certain artists to help boost my mood. Or I'm not going to listen to Too Short. But
Peace is Too Short. Hey, my generation loves him. Okay.
Okay.
No, shout out to Too Short. No, but there.
Mama.
No, just certain things you have to do mentally. Get yourself away from a current situation, because if not, you can get easily riled up in that. Burnout is a real thing too.
Mm-hmm.
everybody has to be creative in their own ways.
Absolutely. You had a
Mhm.
question?
What
I
is
can read your eyes. Okay.
she's been around me too much. In Hollywood, because you see, what is it, Law and Order and these doctor shows, what do you feel the Hollywood lie is? What's the inaccurate stereotype of social workers or crisis responders, 988 systems people that you've ever seen portrayed?
I'm trying to think. I feel like because I haven't watched TV shows like that.
Me either. So
You should ask me, but I'm
Yeah.
not the guest.
But one of the things too, we also have to debunk. We're not coming
Mhm.
in ties and seeing the person who's going through a crisis and say, "Hey, we're going to take you to the hospital." We wear street clothing. We blend in. There were times where we would have to meet people at a restaurant, right, like a
Mhm.
little cafe or something. My approach, because I did work in an area where the person was on a hold, so they couldn't leave, and I tell them, "We're not here to just take you. We're trying to see what you need, what you want to be successful." Go from there. Because yeah, some people, and one of the gentlemen, he was like, "You're not going to take me. Where am I taking you?" It's no, it's not that serious, especially you're not expressing things that are harming to yourself. And I tell people it's okay to be depressed. It's
Mhm.
okay to be overwhelmed and have all these emotions. People don't take you to the hospital because you're actually having those feelings. It's what escalates and what you're doing with those thoughts and those feelings. Are you doing things to harm yourself? I feel like they think that we're just here to take people and put them in a straight coat and throw them in a hospital and things like that. And not
Wearing
everybody.
a suit and tie, Men in Black
Exactly.
type of deal.
Exactly. And then even when you go to a psych hospital, like you're not, everybody's not wearing a hospital gown. Some people are wearing hospital gowns because they don't have any clothes. You can wear your regular clothes there. The only thing you can't do is you can't wear hoods. You can't have belts, obviously. Nothing with strings. You can't, they have to take the strings out of all of them. Again, people think
No strings attached.
really,
She got to break it up a bit.
I know.
Gotta camp onto what you're saying. Do you find different work classes see you the most? And what I mean by that is when I used to take the train, for those that are in the Bay Area, when I used to take BART, when I lived in the Bay going into Oakland versus living in the suburbs going into Oakland. For example, I would see more executives now that I'm living in the suburbs.
Mhm.
Okay. Whereas from somebody in the inner city had various jobs or whatever their profession was coming in. I remember when I would hear, oh, this train is going to go out of service. It's for whatever reason.
Mhm.
I'm coming into the city. People are like, I better call my boss. I ain't going to make it in. It's okay. But then from the suburbs going in, you'd say the train is going out of service or on a delay. They're pulling out their phones. They're conducting business because this person has a meeting they have to attend to. They're expected to be somewhere. The level of anxiety, because you have a higher position, has its own issues. And it was
Yeah.
actually scary sometimes when I would hear that the train is going out of service or whatever. We all don't know what everybody's dealing with, but there's a lot of high stress involved in those higher powered positions going into the city. You would see the anxiety on people's faces. I'm a people watcher, and I'm like, if somebody went off and went crazy, there's no fucking way to get out of this damn train.
Yeah.
It's
True.
scary. I don't dwell on that because I'd never get on the train again. But seriously, people would freak out. Not everybody, but there were
Yeah.
a few key people that did.
At the psych hospital, I see more common folks, people who live in the community, and more common folks in the psych hospital. People don't realize not all psych hospital takes minors, but the one that I work at does take a minor. They do take minors. And so that could be a whole different topic of sometimes at the psych hospital, you have parents that want to go on trips. They have kids that they can't control. They'll drop them off at a psych hospital. And yeah,
Damn.
it's a thing. And then people who have
Wow.
family members that are autistic or any severe mental illness, they are burnt out.
Mhm.
It's a given. They're always dropping them off in the emergency department or psych hospital because they need a break. And they'll say that the individual is claiming to have thoughts of hurting himself or they want to hurt somebody else. That's a whole issue.
Wow.
Yes, it happens.
Just to get a break, because these people, I guess, don't have family who care, or they don't have family to help.
Or yeah, they might
To
not
get,
have support. Yeah,
they might not have the support systems. They will drop the
Wow.
child off.
yeah, and not even just children. They have adult family members that might be severely autistic, and they will drop them off at the ER. It's sad. Like I said, I've never dealt with a family member that was dealt with severe mental health.
Mhm.
It's even really fathom that. And I get that there's people get burned out, but there's different resources for that as well. Some are more than others depending on the county that you live in. Counties really make a big difference when it comes to a lot of the supports. Just going back to the question that you had mentioned, I would say we're in the hospital. We've dealt with people that have actually been a little bit more on the professional side, that have gone through some mental health crisis, that when I used to do 5150s, we had to assess because of sometimes drinking. Sometimes people may not necessarily be a danger to others, but they might have addictions. I realize sometimes people who are higher up have more issues with addictions. For example, a lot of people smoke marijuana, especially in the state of California, but they don't realize there is also marijuana-induced psychosis. The strand of marijuana that you're using can unlock certain types of psychosis. You're thinking, why is this person acting funny? Some of that can be effects of the marijuana that they're using or the strand that they're using.
Wow.
A lot of them are medicated for anxiety, depression. These professionals seem normal. Some of them are pretty medicated. Also, too, like the type of jobs that they have that might cause them a lot more stress. They're taking medications. They're just probably in a position to have a private therapist. They're not necessarily in a psychiatric facility. They're paying for their mental health in a different way. It doesn't necessarily become a public problem. So,
Right. In regards to the autism and people dropping their kids off,
Told
that
you.
struck a nerve with me. Yeah.
Right.
I'm asking, is it because I come from the school of thought and having a son that was on the spectrum, a lot of stuff wasn't just afforded to me or told to me. I had to go out and find it. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you talk to people at the schools, they weren't readily giving me information. Is that the reason why a lot of these people drop off their children? Do they know that there's other resources? Because you said there's other ways they can handle it, but do they really know? Because people are not just readily giving them that information. They hide it for whatever reason.
I had a coworker who used to work with people who were autistic, and she gave me some resources for family members dealing with those who are autistic. I used to like when I used to be partnered with her when we go into the community, because we've had a couple of, it was a minor who the mom had called 988 because her child was erratic. The person I was partnered with was awesome. Like, she knew how to talk to the minor, acknowledge. It takes people wanting to get to know a little bit more about autism, and then also employing people that are more knowledgeable about it. I remember when I was working, there was a lady, she was an adult, and she was autistic. Sometimes the family would just get burnt out. And sometimes too, I'm not justifying some statements that people might make. They might make a statement that might seem as if they're trying to indicate that they want to hurt somebody, but they don't necessarily mean that. They may not know how to articulate themselves very well, but it might be just enough for the family members to say, okay, we're going to take this person to the hospital because they said they wanted to hurt me. They would drop them off, but then when we would assess the person and they don't meet the criteria, if a family drops them off and they said because the person, their child or their family member who is autistic wants to hurt me, and they might have said that in a moment because they were upset, and then we assess them and they don't really feel that way, and they say, okay, I was just mad at them. That doesn't mean that they don't meet the criteria, because if somebody wants to hurt another person and they're very intentional about it, they're not going to change what they say. This person was more on the severe side of being autistic. We were calling the family, say, hey, this person doesn't meet, and they don't answer. They probably won't answer for a couple of days because they know that we're basically trying to tell them, you need to come and get your family member. And even in the hospital, you can't come get them. We have lift services that can drop your family members off. I wish there were more resources for people dealing with family members that are autistic or on the spectrum of autism, because it does take a lot more patience with those individuals, and not a lot of people, even in the health fields, are really versed with helping people who are dealing with autism. And sometimes the care for people who are autistic might be a little bit different.
Right.
I still think it is pretty messed up. I remember working in the ER, and there was a child who the aunt was the guardian of. The girl was pretty autistic, but sometimes when they're really young, they try not to put labels on them because you don't want that to be their identity as they get older and be treated a certain way based upon a diagnosis. But the individual was sometimes aggressive towards her family members, and she was dropped off at the hospital, but people were familiar with her. The aunt left her at the hospital for almost 2 months. Yeah, and it got to the point where we had to call CPS, but the county that they lived in versus the county that we're in, it was a lot. Trying to get 2 different types of CPS, it was just a nightmare. And the crazy part about it is the aunt that dropped her niece off was a nurse. Basically, she was burnt out, and the aunt has done that before. It was before I started working there, but the aunt went on vacation and she dropped her niece off at the hospital, because a lot of people think that I dropped them off at the hospital, they're safe.
Right.
People do that
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
they,
crazy.
they do that a lot.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, how do you deal with, because we're getting into the holidays, right?
Hmm.
How do you guys prepare for high risk crisis situations that we know are coming, because this is like the time frame, family, money being spent, gifts being given, and people who don't have that, or they may have lost their job and they're dealing with a lot of other things in their lives. There's a lot of suicidal folks or people who deal with a lot of stressors. How do you guys prepare for that for the season?
We just go with the flow, right? And so I know working at the psych hospital, we would get certain frequent flyers certain times of the year, right? Because the holidays remind them of being with their loved one that's no longer living.
Right.
Sometimes they just need to be in a safe space because some of them know themselves well enough that they're going to get into this depressive state,
Hmm.
and that they need to be in a secure place because they know what can potentially happen to them.
They're
So
self-aware.
you have a lot of people that when it comes to that time of the year, they will utilize 988 a little bit more. They'll utilize psychiatric facilities. They will utilize going to the ER a little bit more because they don't want to harm themselves. They know it's a situational matter, but they just need to be around either sometimes a positive setting, or a lot of them sometimes don't have a therapist or psychiatrist, right? Some don't feel they need one, but realize in certain times, either anniversaries because people to feel a certain way, anniversaries of the passing of somebody or the birthday of a family member that's no longer here, are just as equally impactful to an individual than
Then
just
the holidays.
correct.
That makes sense.
We come across people like that. And like I said, you can't really prepare much. We just sometimes are prepared to just work more. We're just prepared to, I don't want to say prepared to be compassionate because you should be compassionate in general. When I go out, I try to be a little bit more graceful with people, especially certain times of the year, because we don't know what the next person is going through. I just try to be a little bit more graceful towards people around the holidays, but then also to incorporate passionate just on an everyday basis because we're all that one situation away from being on a hold, that one situation from being in a hospital setting or on medication. Sometimes
That's
people just,
scary for you to even think about,
you
but
think
that's the
about
truth.
it, you lose your job. A lot of us were paycheck to paycheck, right? Lose your job. And that affects your roof, that affects the food that you prepare, your kids, if you have kids. It's just a ripple effect. And so now you become into this depressive state. And then sometimes the time of the year, getting jobs is not as easy as it used to be. So it's a lot. Like I said, we're all one situation away. It just depends on what resources you have. And the whole saying, check on your family, check on your friends.
Right.
That's a real important thing because we have a lot of family members and friends that are actually going through things and people don't necessarily check on them because we're used to them being okay. We're used to seeing them holly jolly and just being who they are, not knowing what they're actually going through. And again, therapy is not for everybody. So other outlets are just as equally important. Learning how to meditate, maybe sometimes going to the gym. Therapy, again, doesn't have to necessarily be a person. It can be a space that you're in or a space that you create.
So, quick question,
Is
and
it
I don't
any-
know if this even pertains to you. Now you've got like the one that I've been hearing a lot about, BetterHelp, and then
Mhm.
there's like these other ones as well. Do you see that by chance people are taking those avenues that maybe you'll see less people where you work? Does it even compute?
I would say you also have to realize I feel like online therapy is actually really good because sometimes people don't want others to know that they're seeking therapy, right? So you're
Absolutely.
able to seek therapy within an enclosed place and you're
Hmm.
able to be on. Sometimes people are more authentic in their own space. But it doesn't change the fact that it doesn't make it less people that we're going to see the psychiatric. It helps, it gives them a resource to fall back on. But then you also have to
Hmm.
think about it. If this person that you're meeting with is prescribing you some medications, right, for your bipolar or for whatever reason, if you have like, right, a therapist doesn't necessarily prescribe you the medication that a psychiatrist prescribes. So say this person is connected with the psychiatrist, the therapist, and so on and so forth, but they don't feel, can you take your medications and you feel good, you don't feel that you need it because you feel good. When you stop taking them because you don't feel like you need them, you don't think, hey, let me call my therapist, let me call my psychiatrist. And then you also have to think about making appointments. Sometimes you may not necessarily be able to schedule an appointment when you need with a team that's already assigned to you to help you with your mental health.
Right.
In the midst of that next appointment, you might feel like, okay, I'm gonna just go to the hospital because I need some help right now. But who I'm linked with, they don't have availability until next week, or they have an open spot on Thursday and it's Sunday night and I'm going through it.
Oh,
So
okay.
sometimes we
Okay.
might be the buffer in between an established team that's already assigned to their care.
My other question that kind of camps onto that. Now, I know you've been speaking in generalities, but I'm going to get a little specific
Mhm.
in regards to Black people, African Americans, however you want to word it. We typically, I think now they're making, oh, I have a therapist more mainstream
Mhm.
in general. You don't feel so much of a stigma attached to it. But yet and still in our culture, you don't go outside your household to deal with problems, period. That's still what some folks say today. Do you find that you're starting to see that people need help, more people of color versus non-people of color?
Hmm. I would say
And I wasn't trying to stump the panel by any
no,
means. I
no,
just thought
no,
it's
no.
interesting.
Yeah, I would say you have more younger people willing to accept mental health assistance, whether it's referrals to some type of outpatient facility,
Hmm.
or just being in a therapeutic atmosphere to assist their needs. Now, when it comes to an older generation, and again, not trying to be funny, but if you're, I would say, 50 and over, even 45,
Yep, Gen
yeah,
X for sure.
yeah, I would say it's a lot harder to help that population in some instances because a lot of the times they feel like, okay, my grandmother went through her whole life and didn't need any type of mental health services and she was okay. She prayed her way out. Sometimes certain generations might feel that the church is their therapeutic outlet. Let me go talk to my pastor, which is fine. But unless your pastor is a licensed professional, they're very limited on how they can help your mental health aspect. And it even comes to just medical care, right? A lot of individuals who are older suffer a little bit more. They take a lot more medications for their medical conditions. Some of them are a little bit more hard headed. Things have progressively gotten worse. Even older populations, they're either very dismissive of it because they feel like, hey, I'm 80 something years old, I'm 90 something years old. I did well without having it. I don't need it now.
Right.
Some of them are open to it, but you have to also baby step them with it. In my approach, I always say, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you.
Oh, it's not you, it's me. Yeah. Who hasn't heard
So,
that before?
Right?
exactly. So you have to approach it and let them know seeking help doesn't mean that there's a problem with you. There is just resources to help you through your problems.
Right.
And I just feel that sometimes they just don't feel that they need it because they didn't need it before. Why are you telling me I need it now?
I
It's just an older person who generally wants that. We always can provide the resources, but a lot of times they're more dismissive. You see a lot more younger. And I would say the older, and that goes for Black, white, Hispanic, wherever, like the older generations, they're just not really for it. Right. I feel like that's also another reason why the older generation feels that the younger generation is a little bit more soft
correct.
because they are a lot more expressive in their feelings. And now, and I don't validate
Social
all of them.
media. Look what I ate.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that they can't be. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, some of the younger generations are a lot more extra with it.
For
I'm a
sure.
millennial, so I'm like in the middle of being introduced and being a little bit more open to it than say like my parents. Sometimes, because we also realize that your mental health also affects your physical health, right?
Right.
A lot of us are becoming more aware and open to it because we see more benefits to receiving help. And that's across the board, regardless of race, gender. It's just
Right.
kind of where you fit. It's just kind of like where you fit in your age. And I think a lot of more African Americans do understand the benefits of getting mental health, doing a mental health check. That's why you start seeing a lot more platforms where they're encouraging that, which is a really good thing because I always tell people, yes, I don't see my therapist all the time because there are tools that he's given me to help me utilize through certain situations. But it's also good just to do at least a check-in once a year, just like you'll go to the doctor for a physical checkup. It doesn't hurt to just get a mental health tune-up because sometimes we might not know we're going through something until we might just have a brief session and then next thing you know you're crying. It's, oh damn, I didn't realize I was going through all that.
Right. Right.
I'll be honest, I don't have statistics on younger, middle, and older generations or ethnic groups
Right.
that are seeing therapy a lot more. I'm just seeing the awareness a lot more and that they're really
Right.
pushing it, especially in communities of color. They are really doing it. I was surprised when I was working in the ER. There are certain racial or ethnic groups that were coming to the ER for psychiatric evaluations that we don't think of. You don't think of somebody in the Asian community coming in for a 5150 evaluation. You don't think of somebody who is of the Middle Eastern or Indian
Right.
background coming, and we actually have dealt with those in that population. It's just interesting.
I know you said you don't have statistics. I get that. I'm just talking from my generation and even my grandparents' generation. To your point, I got this far. I don't need that. In my household, it was more or less what goes on in this house stays in the house. That's how my part of it was raised. But then I'm glad to see that you're in this health field, because there weren't many people of color or even Black people in the mental health realm. Me as a Black woman going to somebody non-Black explaining my issues, I might even know where the deep-seated issue comes from. How can you at least get the history without me having to give you the history of why I'm feeling what I'm feeling? We all know what it's like to be a person of color when you walk into a room and how you're supposed to conduct yourself. I don't need to explain all of that to you because you know what I'm talking about. So having somebody going to a therapist that doesn't look like them, and then you're expecting me to open up to you, I can tell you right now, that's for some people, that's not going to happen. If you're looking to get help, you can maybe a session or two, and you could tell right off the bat if that's going to work. And not saying if you look like me that it's going to be a one and done either. I'm more apt to open up or want to talk to somebody that can understand from whence I come. I'm glad that you being a young person, and hopefully there's younger people coming in behind you that are doing this, because I'm going to get up there one day. And the fact that it's, oh God, I got kids older than you or younger than you, but
Yeah.
I might be more apt, seriously, more apt to say something as opposed to someone else coming in. It's just not going
But
to
you
happen.
actually, but you'll be surprised because you're getting a lot more African Americans as social workers and other people of color. You're starting to see a lot more of that, I would say, within my generation, because everybody wants to be an impact, right? They want to impact the communities that they come from. And they realize the lack of representation in these fields,
Right.
even doctors, right? And I know they said that there's a shortage with doctors and stuff like that, but the hospital that I work at, I was actually really surprised. I'm starting to see a lot more Black doctors in different areas. I start seeing a lot more Latino, and those two in particular, because I feel like those two were the ones that aren't really represented the most. But as a Black woman, I've met with certain individuals that felt a little bit more comfortable. Some of them might give me a pass because they feel like I might be younger, but they understand the cultural background that I come from. So
Exactly.
they
Exactly.
I've seen the impacts that's
Yeah.
happened so far. One of the things that my manager had specifically said at the hospital that I work at, he wanted to make sure that he has a lot more representation within our department. It actually has really made an impact because you want your employees to reflect the type of patients that you're seeing.
That's my
Yeah,
point.
it's actually helped out. But sometimes I'll get an individual who is a little bit older. When I get situations where a patient is older and I feel they may not be as receptive to me, I talk to their kids who are probably around my age or their grandkids, say, hey, we have a referral for your loved one because they don't want to take their medication. I said, I'm more than willing to talk to your loved one, but I'm 34. This person is 80. I don't think they're going to take it from me. Hey, take your medication. I said, how
Right.
can we work together so we can make sure that your loved one? So,
Right.
when I'm dealing with somebody older that feels, okay, I'm not going to listen to you. I got kids older than you. Yeah, you do. But we're going to work together to make sure we can make something work. I had a patient. She was
You've
Caucasian.
always got a story. You notice that?
Of
She's always
course.
got a story. Yeah.
Okay.
You got
But it was so
storytellers in your family?
if I told you a lot of stories within my family, yeah. So she was from the Bay Area. So I always tell them, I'm like, yeah, I'm originally from the Bay Area. She was like, oh, yeah, I'm from Richmond. I was like, oh, okay. She said that she grew up in Hercules or Pinole and
Okay.
stuff. And I was like, and then I made reference. And then she all of a sudden says, oh, my mom worked with a lot of African Americans. I want to be like, I don't give a damn. But she wants to build some type of rapport with me because of what her mom went through. And she was like, I don't see color and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
I hate
Oh,
that saying.
Lord.
I hate that
Oh,
so,
saying.
but it made her feel
I have
better.
Black friends. Sorry.
how
Exactly.
many?
Her name is Chelsea. But
Right?
so then we get those type of stories too, because you have some that want to find some type of connection with a social worker that's not of the same background as them. So it's funny. So I just let it be.
I had one more question pertaining to it because I understand where you're coming from with regards to not having a lot more representation. You see a lot more young people who are more open to sitting on the proverbial couch than the 50 and older generation. My question is, because there's this ongoing thing now about men in mental health, Black men more specifically in mental health. Do you see more Black men more open to being seen and laying on that proverbial couch and talking?
I would just say this, in the spaces that I've been in, you don't see a lot of men. Now, what some men, specifically Black men, have done, they have created like a podcast. They will create certain types of social groups so they can commune with one another. But I don't see them actually seeking mental health, nor do I see a lot of Black males in mental health either. Coming to California, what I see is different than maybe somebody in the Midwest. They might have a lot more representation, and then a
For
lot more
Atlanta.
yeah, a lot of Southern and probably Midwestern, maybe East Coast. You might have more representation and a lot more Black males seeking mental health resources. Where I am, I don't see it, but I'm not saying it's not there. It just hasn't been something that I have seen. You do see that a lot more males talk about needing to be more open. So a lot of conversations are there, especially on social media, about Black males seeking care. But right now, I just haven't seen a lot of representation on both sides.
Gotcha. You don't see the representation on the West Coast, right?
I would just say that there might be a little bit more representation, maybe like in the immediate Bay Area, you might actually have a lot more. But in the area where I am, I personally don't see it.
Right.
And I don't want to always judge social media because I don't know where they're showcasing their stuff. But I would just say this part of Northern California, I don't see a lot of representations like that, either providing the care or receiving the care.
That makes sense. I think Black men are still into the barbershop talk, still coming together in the barbershop. That's
Right.
like their own little
Yeah,
therapy.
that's
Kind of like
their
women,
meaning.
right?
their meaning.
Salons and the nail shop. But
Yeah.
men really are into the barbershop and airing their stuff in the barbershop.
I remember my grandfather, he had no hair. He had just a little bit here and some sprigs. He's going to the barbershop. Really? But again, we all pretty much knew what that was about.
Just to be around men
Yeah.
and talk.
Yeah. And like I
Yeah.
said, you got to also realize too, a lot of certain generations, their therapy is going to church,
Yeah.
right?
You're-
So sometimes the
that's
church is still some type of therapy for them.
They always said that
The-
was a hospital. They
Like,
referred to it.
and I feel like church is a good foundation for some, but you also have to realize some people will be like, hey, if the Lord wants me, sometimes they'll look at the church, but not necessarily realize you need the best of both worlds. Sometimes you might need that pill. God got you connected with that type of insurance. God got you connected with this person. So you can go get that pill. So you can go get that help.
Right.
And I do
People
feel
feel
there's
like-
a lot of the churches or the pastors, ministers, you do catch some nowadays that are saying you don't only just need your church family, but you should also seek some type of medical profession as well. You do have some churches that do advocate for both having your spiritual balance and sitting on somebody's couch and talking about some things because, you know, the balance is needed. But then the older churches, they're still like, come on, tell it all to Jesus, tell him all your problems. Right.
Man, you can't even get to your car soon enough before, girl, did you hear sister so-and-so? I would not get up and say that.
That's why it's good to have that balance because God created certain positions, right? Certain fields for people. I say, God, I'm a believer. I may not go to church. Whatever drives that person to that specific help. Some people need a physical couch to sit on. Somebody
Right.
needs all that. And it's funny because with my therapist, I always tell him, I said, you got a patient for life. Like I said, I may not go to him all the time, but periodically, I remember one time I was sitting on his chair and we were talking about something. I just started tearing up and he just looked at me and I'm thinking he's going to be a little bit more like empathetic. He was like, are you done? I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, let's go. We can continue. Yeah, some people need that physical interactions and stuff like that.
There's one thing I was thinking, going back to the whole social media aspect of everything. There are people that tell everything, they're open to it, they're more receptive, but at the same time, they are too open. Then they get their feelings hurt because they've been so open. Then they need help because now they got to crawl out of that hole that they put themselves into because they were sharing everything. So it's what came first, the chicken or the egg, because they're just doing too much. And then when you're no longer getting the accolades and now you got people that are what they call keyboard bandit, if you will, and they're doing all that stuff, then all of a sudden it's now I need help because now I'm mentally distraught.
One time when I was out in the field, we had a 988 call because somebody had posted something online on social media and called.
How do you handle that?
If that person wants to seek any type of help, then we'll go. I think the person knew the individual, called and said, hey, this person might be in need of some assistance. We were able to get the information of where they lived. We knocked on the door to see, because even if you don't want to meet with me, I'll still give you some resources because you might not feel comfortable because you don't know me. And so you might feel comfortable with establishing some care somewhere else. And sometimes people don't know how to navigate mental health with their insurance. They also have sliding scale therapists that people don't realize. They have some therapists that specifically take Medi-Cal. There's agencies like Turning Point. There's places where you can get connected, especially if you have Medi-Cal. There's sliding scale therapists, and then there's therapists based upon your own insurance that you can utilize. There's different ways. Just some people just don't know how to navigate that.
Is there some things that you can, because you just gave a lot of
Man, you're reading
nuggets,
you're reading my mind. Can you give some
resources that we can add in the description for people who may, because like I said, we didn't know about the 988, we didn't know about the people dropping folks off. It's a lot of things we don't know.
You're right.
And if it's on the website, you don't know where to navigate to find it. And then when you do get to it, it's so much legalese, you don't understand it.
I just say you don't know what you don't know.
I can send you guys some links too. I was talking about the 5150s. I always tell people, if you have a loved one that is on a psychiatric hold and they're in the emergency room, and yes, you might be an emergency contact, and say your loved one has been, a psych hospital has accepted them, they're supposed to be transported to that psychiatric hospital. The hospital is not obligated to tell their family. So sometimes we would get calls and they want to cuss us out. We always ask the patients if they want us to tell their family members that they're going to X hospital. And if they say no, we have to respect that. Even if they feel like this person is not mentally stable, we're still legally obligated to lean into what they want. I always let people know in the emergency room, we don't have to tell them. When that loved one goes to a psych hospital, they can call the family member and let them know, hey, I'm at this hospital, right? And then the caseworker at the hospital, they're not obligated to call the family unless they're on the emergency contact, but we're not obligated to talk to family. And I always let people know that. I try to let them know that up front. So there's no type of, you didn't tell me. Well, they didn't want us to tell you.
So basically, I can go check myself in and say, I don't want nobody to know. And you have to honor that. Okay.
Even if the family were looking for this person, they may think that they're missing. You still don't have the obligation to tell them that they're there?
No, we don't. We can't.
Wow.
We're talking like HIPAA. Is it HIPAA adjacent or is it actually HIPAA?
I would say it's HIPAA adjacent because we don't know. You can say you're the mom. I don't know. You also have to protect them because if something was to happen to them and we told them, an individual where they're at, like they can be waiting outside the hospital until they're being discharged.
Gotcha.
So
they could have been the reason why they checked themselves in.
Correct.
Oh, who could you tell? Could you tell? So if I had a loved one that just checked themselves in and they said, don't tell them. And I'm thinking this person is missing.
If they're in a psychiatric hospital.
If they're in a psychiatric hospital.
Yeah, we do have a leeway to call like either next to kin or family if they're in an emergency without their permission. Now, we're not giving you any details of what's going on, but we can let them know something as simple as, hey, they're in the hospital. ER has certain privileges where you can bypass that within reason, but when they're in an actual psychiatric facility, we can't call anybody. If you're on probation, we can't call your probation officer. Your probation officer can call, but we can't confirm or deny this individual is there until they want us to confirm with you that they're here.
Wow.
I'll say you're not supposed to. Now, if somebody else does, that's on them. But you're not supposed to.
What do you recommend if a person say, I'm thinking about getting into this profession? What would be the ideal person who would be great for this type of profession, in your opinion?
I would say you just have to be a compassion. You can't be sensitive. You cannot be sensitive because sometimes people will say some out of pocket stuff to you. When people are rude to me, in my mind, I'm like, I'm getting paid to see you, so I can just leave. I would say you can't be easily riled because depending on the type of patients you see, there's always something that can trigger you. I had a person that I worked with at the county. He was always triggered. And it's, why are you doing this? You're crying all the time. You need to take a smoke break.
He sounds like an empath. That's
right.
I think empaths might
he's
not
too
be
in tune.
Yeah, they used to irritate us. But you can't be a really sensitive person because there's always going to be something about somebody's story that's going to touch you, right? People dropping loved ones off at the ER, seeing somebody pass away. You're working with the community. You don't know what you're going to get into. I just like working in a hospital setting. You have to be mindful of who you are and you have to be strong too. Because oftentimes, because I work with doctors too, the doctors will try to tell you how to do your job. So I just don't reply. I don't have time for you to tell me what I'm supposed to do. You have to be a strong person. You can't be super sensitive. You have to be organized too. When you work in mental health, you're seeing multiple people and you're following up on multiple things. You just have to be organized. Stay true to yourself and know why you got into this field or why you're still staying in this field. Because why you get into the field and why you stay in the field can be two different reasons, two different passions.
Right.
I like that.
That's just my thoughts. So
I like it.
Either one of you, if you want to get your master's in social work.
Nope.
Not gonna happen.
The There's
Not
Mm-mm.
gonna happen.
Everything you just explained.
Confirmed why
It
I'm
ain't
not.
me.
I'm definitely an empath. I can walk in an area and feel something, and I'll tell my husband, you know what, I can't stay here. He goes, look, we're gonna stay here for a little while. He now gets it. It's not me being snooty. It's just a feeling.
She's like, mm-mm. I would like to see more men.
Yes.
I don't know how you could get more men into that field, but
I have one of my friends, we were working together. I'm like, so you're gonna be my friend. He's a male.
Stalker and possessive, but that's okay.
No, but he's really good. He's actually on a path to, because we're both technically registered. You get your master's and you have to go through the process through the state and apply, fingerprinted, all the other kind of stuff to get registered. And then you accumulate many hours and take tests. Once you pass, you can be licensed. He's in the process of getting his license in marriage family therapy. That's not my thing. I don't see myself doing individual therapy. I feel like working in a hospital with one-to-one is enough, but I don't want to sit with somebody and go through their life about when that 4:30 hits. Oh, actually, I'm gone before 4:30 because we can leave out 7 minutes before. By 4, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm gathering my things. By
I hear you.
4:15, I gotta make sure I clean the dishes that I have, make sure my desk is presented well, and I'm at clock area by 4:23.
out.
Yes, I don't want to do therapy like that. No.
Do you see yourself doing remote therapy on the side? Can you do something like that on the side? Oh, you can. Okay.
Yeah, when I get licensed, I think I can work under somebody and technically do that, but I don't want to do that. I prefer my 9 to 5. The closest thing I get to therapy is sometimes having a prolonged conversation with somebody other than what my referral is for, and that's enough. But like I said, I'm bouncing around from the psych hospital to the hospital, and that's fine. I like that. Like I said, there's always.
I'm glad you do.
Hey, you can do it. I believe in you. But
She's
it's
talking to
also
you
fun-
because she sure ain't talking to me.
I am past those years of my life.
But
I do not have the patience of Job.
She does not
I
have the
know.
patience to be with patients.
not at the hospital. In order to be in the position that I am, you have to have your master's. I remember one time, I think it was like a patient's family member asked her, like, what do you do in order, how do you become? I said, you have to get your master's. And she's like, you got your master's? I've been had my master's, bro. Yes, I have my master's. Sometimes
Thank you very much.
Sometimes when you're in these spaces and you let them know that you have to have a master's, they realize you have your master's to be in this position. Sometimes people will take a double look at you. Say, oh, wow, you got a master's? It's like, yes.
Are you going to pursue your doctorate?
At first I was, but there's no financial benefit
Yeah.
to me getting a master's. So I feel like now if you're going to obtain a degree, you want to be able to financially benefit from it. And unless I'm teaching, which I don't want to do, unless you want to do research, which I don't want to do, there's really no
Financial
you actually
benefit.
you actually make more money being licensed than you do having your doctorates in the field, in the specific realm that I'm in.
Got it. All right. Masters,
I'm sure
anything
your
else?
parents are proud, huh?
Of course.
But you're making a joke there, E?
Yes, you did. Hey.
No, I'll put it that way, right?
And it's crazy. I went from working at a radio station to working with
Right.
people. Yes.
Who would have thunk it?
Not
I know.
me.
I do miss working at the radio. It was fun, but again, I wasn't making any money.
But you do say you love it. So it's not necessarily monetary. You do love what you do, right?
Oh yeah, story. That's the best part.
Exactly.
Yeah. Before you go, quick story that is just so bizarre that we'll still be talking about it after the show's over.
Or I'll be like, I don't believe you.
I want to see pictures. Be careful. He might have pictures. But anyway.
I'm trying to think. When I say it's a lot, I had to think of, and I bet you after I tell you this one, I'm gonna think of another story afterwards. There was this individual who was in the psych hospital because he was feeling depressed. What ended up happening was he was living with his ex-wife. They weren't together. He had an affair with his daughter-in-law because he felt that she was the woman for him.
Okay.
He felt like that was the woman for him. He didn't understand why his son didn't want to talk to him anymore. His ex-wife was still supportive of him and said that they're really good friends. He basically stole his daughter-in-law from the son and lived with his ex-wife.
Really? And the ex-wife was cool with it?
Yeah, she was cool. I think she still wanted him back.
He must got some serious money,
no,
mouth game.
I thought you were going to say something else.
Another one too.
And it was nice having you. Thank you.
No, this one isn't necessarily like a funny one, but I always say when it comes to mental health and you have minors, to be very careful. Remember when I was telling you before that we've had family members drop off kids? So when I was
Yes.
working in the ER doing 5150, we had somebody drop their 6-year-old off at the
Oh
hospital.
man.
And the kid was, I don't want to say it was a bad kid, meaning he was very kind of like aggressive. By him being aggressive, we had to contemplate on if we were going to put him on a hold. Young African American kid, my coworker, he ended up having the individual. It brought her to tears because she had to put a 6-year-old African American kid on a psychiatric hold. As we all know, that stays in your records, and that's basically going to follow you for the rest of your life. So,
Really?
yeah, you get on a hold, that's in your medical records. They don't wipe that out.
What does that hold to where it's
So psychiatric holds, your initial 5150 is for 3 days. It's 72 hours. In the hospital, they have what's called stack holds because they can't put you on a 5250, which is up to 14 days. But you can keep getting stacked holds. If the 72 hours is coming to an end and you still meet criteria, they'll put another 5150 on you. It keeps stacking up. And it sucks because in California, there's not a lot of places that take minors, and there's even less places that will take somebody that's 6 years old. You might have a 6-year-old that might have two 5150s. And then if I don't remember if he got picked up at a psych hospital, but he might go as far as Santa Rosa. Those sometimes go far because those might be the only places I take them. It brought my coworker to tears because she said, I don't feel right doing this. Our supervisors were saying that he met criteria and you had to do your job.
Wow.
That was extremely hard for her. She had to put a 6-year-old on hold. She even said to me too, she was like, Ashleigh, not saying because I am African American, but she was just saying, because she's Caucasian, she was just saying, I just don't feel right doing this. She cried. She said this is going to follow him for the rest of his life.
I
Drop off.
The reason I say that is in my head, what has happened, because I have a friend of mine who's a school teacher, and she has a student similar from what you're saying. Obviously, it's a different person, but she's at that dilemma where she's one of those that can handle the hard to handle children. And she doesn't want to put any stigma on him. Again, a young Black male. I think he's like in the first grade, because for that same reason, she knows it's going to follow him. Our conversation consisted of there's something that not so much been done to this child, but this child has been in environments where he is seeing too much at a very young age and trying to process it and having to get it out the best way that they can. Now it's coming full circle, and it's not to his benefit. When you have parents that don't parent, it's the child that suffers. That's why I said when it's that young, how can that be? It's a rhetorical question, but it's like, how can it be?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because
I don't get how it stays with you for the rest of your life.
when I mean it's in your medical chart. So it's not gets expunged, right? So just in case as he gets older, he keeps going to the ER because of certain behaviors and they feel that it meets criteria for certain holds. It can be a reflection of him in that moment, or a description of him for that moment will be in your chart. And you just don't want things negatively affecting you. It just keeps building. So say you want certain jobs, right? Say you want to get a professional job later on down in the future, right? They do a background check. Certain things show up on certain jobs when they do background checks for you versus others. So
yeah,
again,
he probably couldn't get a government job.
Yeah, probably. It just sucks because this person goes to court, wants to make a big fuss. A judge might feel like, okay, I want a subpoena. That's extreme cases. But again, if you're that young, you just don't want
that on your record. Right. Especially if it doesn't come out. Because what if he made a 360 in his life? And somehow, I know that may be far-fetched, but what if he did make a complete turnaround and he's not that 6-year-old and he found some way to get out of that situation and circumstance mentally, but that's still on his record?
Hopefully he's not doing that in school and compounding the issue. If it's happening here, then going to school, the same thing. Then you're talking CPS, because I'm sure CPS has been involved at some point if it's gotten to where it is now. I'm referring to the other young man I was just speaking about. I don't know if there's any medical thing going on, but CPS has come up to the school because of things that had happened at home and they needed to talk to him. He acts out in class. That part is following. If this person is similar and they're in school, it could be the same thing.
This is why I can't do your job.
Hey, man, who's the next guest? I'm ready to move on.
This is why I can't do your job. I would be like, I am not putting this boy on no 5150. Hell no.
And then,
But for
yeah.
minors, I'm trying to look it up right now. It's not called a 51. It's a 5150. Minor, it has the numbers
Like
are
an
different.
abbreviation or something at the end, some
Let
type
me
of
look it
letter
up
or
now.
number.
Let's see, 5150.
You looking it up?
No, I almost did, but
Yeah,
we got the
I'm just,
professional here. I don't have to look it up. Shoot.
I'm trying to
Yeah,
read your
so
eye
it's-
contact.
5150. It's just a form because 5150 is technically for an adult, so it's called a
Okay.
5585. That's
5585.
for minors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't deal with minors like that. I do hearings at the hospital that I'm at, so that's the only other time I really deal with minors.
Look, you got minors of your own, and that might
Right.
put you in a 5150 hole.
Do need a vacation.
Wow. Okay.
Ah,
And we're done.
Okay. She want to drop some kids off somewhere.
I don't know where she's gonna drop them, but we got you on record.
That's what grandparents are for, right?
Right?
That's what I hear. That's what I hear.
This is so crazy. Okay, I got one last thing. Hopefully,
Ah.
you have a funny story. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's like a reality show.
Mhm.
When you said the doctor tried to tell you something, your face immediately changed. He can't tell me nothing. And that's what I get
No.
from a lot of folks that it's like the doctors can't do what you therapists or you social workers can do. And it's a clash sometimes.
Yeah.
So I just
Give me
don't reply. I don't have time for that. But I would say a funny story. So in a psych hospital, they also have group therapy, right? As a social worker, there's certain topics that you meet with the individuals. At one point, there was a lady in a wheelchair who during group therapy ended up, I didn't watch it happen, saw the aftermath. She did a handstand and a split while in her wheelchair. Yeah, she somehow ended up doing
Good upper body strength.
Stripper?
You know what?
Fluff.
What?
Yes, there is you sometimes get some funny patients too.
Okay.
Yeah, that make your work a lot more easy.
I'm still trying to
Right.
get I'm sorry. I'm just
I know handstand and split.
So it went through the
Volunteer.
back chair and it's on the front. So she's tears. Oh my God. Okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. Well,
I said,
Ashleigh.
Next, if you guys have me come back, I'll make sure I have more stories for you.
We asked you to come back.
Yeah. We need
You're-
more.
Come on,
We
now.
need more
This is
stories.
Another
Okay.
mental health awareness time. We don't want some more stories.
Well, you're right. So we'll
Yep.
contact you next year for the next mental awareness month. There we
Yes, mental health awareness. Yes. You guys, I hope you enjoy Ashleigh. She brought us a lot of stuff. I was very unaware. You have told me I was very uninformed, very unaware. We learned today about 8
988.
instead of 911. We're definitely going to put that in the note. Right. Who is that? So who sang that song? Someone please call 911.
I was referring to Day Day personally, but that's okay.
We learned about 988. I think we need to get the word out. We need to get the message out. Stop calling 911. I had
Right.
no clue about 988 for
Right.
your mental health loved ones or friends. Assess the
Alleviated.
situation first.
So much heartache on the
Yes.
side of law enforcement as well, because I'm pretty sure they hated having to deal with these kind of calls because again, like you said, Ashleigh, that's not what they're trained for. They're trained for a totally different scenario, and that is not what it is.
Ashleigh, you just educated us. You educated the D&D family. We appreciate it. We also learned about what it takes to get on a 5150, splits in a wheelchair. We heard about some of your cases, the mental health aspect of it,
Right.
mental health with us being melanated folks, the need for more people to sit on the couch who are melanated, the more we need men in mental health. We got a wealth of information. So we definitely appreciate you so much for coming and blessing us with your intelligia. Your intellect.
Anytime.
Yes. Hopefully you will enjoy this episode of Disrupt and Discuss. As always, like, share, and subscribe. We to bring thought-provoking people, whether it be entrepreneurship or their profession. Hopefully you gain some knowledge from this episode. As always, you can catch us on here if you want to see our faces, Ashleigh's beautiful face as well. YouTube, come to YouTube. But if you don't, you just want to listen to us in your ear or in your radio when you're driving down the street. We are on all platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Prime. We're on it all. Definitely indulge. We appreciate you guys so much. Thank you to our new subscribers, the people who have been rocking with us. We really, really appreciate you all.
Yes.
As always. Until the next one, what do we say?
Bye.
Bye.
Tiki Barber here. I remember those grueling practices, pushing through fatigue and striving for greatness. Well, that's the same dedication My Herba puts into their supplements. They understand the body's needs. My Herba takes a holistic approach to wellness. Whether it's their sea moss, immune defense, or even sleepy time, they have an option for you. Let My Herba make the best you with code BARBER10 for 10% off at thefitnesscollectif.com.